playing online blackjack and want to try upping your odds? Well, here's a tip. Cheat cards tell you statistics for whether you hit or stand on every move. If you're into stats, this could be your ticket to winning. And it is totally legal. Now, go get lucky. See you in Lost Pages. Let's get lucky.
The Pirates use that thing, Joe. It's like once every 15 years, we'll hope for the perfect storm with lightning in a bottle, then we'll try to rebuild it again. Enough, man. In this day and age, with the prospects that you can certainly have by stinking every year and top-flight talent like you see in Paul Skeens, it's just a shame, and it gets on my nerves. Like, for me, being a Phillies fan, I think it's hilarious. Like, I never want Pittsburgh to be good. Why? Not because it's a rivalry. It's just a team you don't have to worry about in the playoffs, and your team can make the playoffs.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The NFL has ruined the concept of trade requests. It's not real. It's just a negotiating tactic. I'd appreciate reporters changing the language, because in the NBA, when a player requests a trade, they get dealt. In the NFL, nobody actually thinks it matters. If Jacoby Myers is going to buck that trend, and if Jacoby Myers is going to get traded, we'll see where he goes.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Hopefully starting in 2027, where I think the schedule could just completely get blown up, which would be so exciting for the fans, the players. So there's interesting things that I've heard that that would be like one of the first things that could say that people are talking about, and that things could really get changed up a little bit.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
Let's roll. The Combat Sports Report has begun. I am Gabe Morency. Let's do this thing on the grid, the SportsGrid radio and television networks, Roku TV, many other platforms, networks, affiliates, and everything else in between. We got a lot of stuff to break down, and we got some badasses to do it with. Anybody that's been watching this show knows we talk a lot of BKFC on the program, and rightfully so. You could argue it's the hottest thing in combat sports right now. And it sort of reminds me of the early days of the UFC, actually. I'm talking like the early days. It wasn't sanctioned everywhere. It was almost like, oh, that stuff's crazy. And there was like sort of like a real buzz about it. It sort of like felt like it was the place to be. It was like an underground buzz about it. But it's more than an underground buzz about BKFC, and especially going to Newark. We're going to have fireworks, man. We got Mike Perry. We got Jeremy Stevens. And we got Jimmie Rivera taking on Frankie Edgar, who comes back out of retirement. Jimmie Rivera steps up and in on the Combat Sports Report. Jimmy, welcome to the show. Thanks a lot for taking the time to be with us.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
So, Jimmy, how fired up are you? Listen, I got super fired up watching the press conference the other day. Super well done, authentic, real. Fighters allowed to be themselves. It was a pretty fun press conference, and I got super fired up for this card, man. The countdown is on. Newark, October the 4th.
Yeah, man, I'm excited. I mean, it's going to be an awesome night. Bare knuckle BKFC is really growing as a sport, and it's one of the fastest growing sports in combat sports. And to make history on October 4th and have the very first ever BKFC right in Prudential at the Rock, it's awesome. I'm really excited to be part of history.
You can never predict the future in life, right? In the fight game and our own lives and stuff. But I'm just thinking back. You ever imagine you were going to be fighting Frankie Edgar in a bare knuckle match in Newark, New Jersey, right? And here you guys are, and you guys are boys. You know each other, right? You know, you've trained together in the past, so it's not about bad blood. It's more about just putting on a show, and each of you wanting to win a fight because you're both competitors.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's no bad blood compared to Mike Perry and Jeremy Stevens, or especially the girls, the feature fight. The girls fighting each other for that. There's a lot of bad. They really hate each other there. I mean, I think what you see with Frankie I at a press conference is what you saw starting back in the day before Conor McGregor, where guys came in and were like, yeah, it's a tough opponent. It's going to be a good fight, and you just saw wars. The perfect one I can think of is Robbie Lawler and oh my God, why am I forgetting his name right now? The Canadian kid. Oh my God, it was Robbie. You know what I'm talking about? Robbie was a bloody mess. He had a rip. His lip was like hanging off. Who was he fighting again? I can't think of his name. It was just a war, and there was no bad blood, no nothing, no trash talk at the conference. They went in super professional, and they left the fans with an unbelievable fight and something very entertaining.
Isn't it the worst though? And you've been around that. You've seen that. You've seen that before. The fake heat, so to speak, Jimmy. Right? The fake rage, the fake heat. We see it in the MMA world right now. And people feel as if though it's almost the Carter effect. Actually, in a way, they feel like they have to be a showman, right, to sell it. But if it's not real, it doesn't come across like it comes across kind of lame, in my opinion. What's your take on that?
I totally agree. I mean, look, you got people like Henry Cejudo, who's the king of crunch. You know what I mean? King of cringe. And people see him, the stuff he does is super cringy. Like, it's not authentic. It's not real. It's not like, you're throwing facts out there like a Dylan Dennis who's just spitting and throwing out facts and trash talking. But a lot of stuff he's saying is really true. So that's why there's so much more animosity in there, because it's not like he's faking stuff. He's really saying the true things that's happened to guys like, Cejudo, who's very cringy. You look at him like, it's like, what is this guy doing on the mic? And if it's not authentic, it's weird, and it comes across weird, and people are like, what the hell?
Yeah, and real fight fans can tell. And it was driving me crazy. And you were talking about the Canadian kid, Rory McDonald. Rory McDonald.
I couldn't.
An absolute psycho, Rory. Remember Rory? Yes. Remember, like, people, he looked like a serial killer. Remember in those days? He was young. He just had that, like, blank stare in his face. He was a crazy kid in his heyday, Rory.
I was trying to think about it. I was going to look it up right after.
It was driving me crazy because I was like, what fight is he talking about? UFC days? I'm like, it's got to be Rory then. I'm like, yeah, it's got to be Rory.
Yeah.
A natural-born killer. Yeah, that's it.
That's what I'm saying. You got this guy looks a little bit psycho, very quiet, very soft-spoken.
Yeah,
you got Robbie Lawler coming there, very professional. They're talking about how this is going to be a good fight. We're both very tough opponents. And they went in there and put unbelievable 3 5-minute round fight.
Bloodfest. It was a bloodfest.
It was a bloodfest. Robbie's lip was hanging by a thread. They kill each other. And you don't get that nowadays. You get really like
it's all good. It's all good. We'll pick it up from there. But yeah, Rory's a badass. I said, listen, let me ask you too. It's not for everybody. It's one of the things too. Like I said, like the early MMA days would scare the general public. And now it seems like BKFC even scares some MMA fighters in a sense. And I like what Jeremy said. Jeremy Stevens said, you know what's cool about BKFC, why it's so popular? He said it's just so violent. And he said it's aesthetically violent, like the looks, the cuts, the blood. Some fight fans like that. And you got to be a different breed of fighter, Jimmy, to want to fight like that too, right? Like even in the UFC and MMA days, there used to be more dudes like that. Like, guys just want to stand and bang and do it. But it's more, it's more of a sport than a fight now, right? And I like what Jeremy said about BKFC. He goes, not everybody, likes getting punched in the face. And a lot of people break once they get cracked in the face.
Yeah, I mean, listen. I think the fans love it, whether they're an MMA fan or a BKFC fan. They love the sport. It's very entertaining. It's very fast-paced. I think as a fighter to be in it, you got to be in it to win it. It's not one of those things where you're like, oh, I'm losing the fight, I'm just going to coast. Like, nope, that's not going to happen. There's no coasting in it. There's no, there's no slow pace at all. It's hot, fast, intense.
Because that's the thing, Jimmy. You can buy time. In an MMA fight, you can buy time, right? You don't like the way things are going. Yeah. All right, I'm going to go over here. I'll get against the fence. Like, you can take a breather. There's really not a lot of pauses in BKFC, right? It's just once it's almost like, bull riding or something. Like, the pro rodeo. So it comes out, it shoots out. There's no time to think. There's no time to regroup. Like, you don't have time to, like, catch your breath even. It's just bang, 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 go.
Yeah, and you can't hide. You can't be like, oh, I'm going to take him down and lay on him and catch my breath, or I'm going to get him against the cage and just hang out there. Like, nope, it's just go, 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 go. It's entertainment. And the awesome thing about one of the things I love about BKFC is once a fight's over, the next fight's coming right out. There's no downtime. They're getting the next one out. It's almost a race of how fast can we get these fights done. For the next, everybody in the nonstop keeps calling me. Am I still there?
Yeah, we got you, Jimmy. We got you. You're cutting it in about a minute. It's all good.
Everybody's calling me. I don't get it. Even though I have my phone to do not disturb. I'm sorry, man.
No, it's all good, Jimmy. Let me ask you, because
with the fights. Yeah, good.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you know, Frank. Listen, we're coming up against the break, so I'll hit you with this on the other side. But I want to ask you about your opponent, Frankie Edgar. A lot of people are surprised coming back. Obviously, a fighter that you know very well. So I want to get your take on your opponent, Frankie Edgar, on the other side. This is going to be a badass card, guys. Mike Perry, Jeremy Stevens. You want entertainment? Newark. October the 4th. It's the place to be. More on the other side with Jimmie Rivera. Let's roll.
Alabama, Florida State, years Georgia opened with Clemson, and then Oregon and LSU and Les Miles opened with Oregon and smacked them around. Alabama knocked around USC and Wisconsin and Vatech for years. The SEC fears nobody.
Stop it. I love the SEC. Put them on. By the way, if we just had an only SEC college football playoff show, it would be absolutely wonderful. How about that out there, SEC backers?
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
So the Mets, they went through a rough stretch where they were terrible, but, they win the series versus the Mariners. They're kind of turning things around just a little bit. Like, the offense has been there. You said they were in a playoff race. It's tough to say, like, they need to win. It's like trying to trust teams in different sports at the end of the season. But the hitters are hitting right now. Lean into the Mets, lean into the Phillies. These teams have something to play for, and they're cooking right now.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
I think what you saw last year is it's tough to say, it's projectable, but I do think it's something that when you're taking shots here, you're looking for a bye-week coverage wide receiver on your roster or a guy that has upside who's young enough to grow into more of a role. I think the development of Bo Nix was stunningly good last year. If we can build on that again this year, I think Marvin Mims is a really good selection as the 57th wide receiver off the board.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
What does he do after he hits the home run? He walks over to the fan and he pats him on the back and gives him a high five. This is the same fan that's been going after him for the entire game. Dave Roberts after the game saying, hey, look, every once in a while, it's kind of funny to see Shohei, who's got this wonderful personality that we almost never see. It was great to see him do that with the fans.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Combat Sports Report continues. I am Morency, SportsGrid Radio and Television Network, and more. We're kicking it with Jimmie Rivera, BKFC. Jimmie Rivera, and his phone's blowing up. People want tickets for the card, I think. They're like, Jimmy, you're going to hook me up for the card October the 4th. But listen, Frankie's a Jersey kid, but you grew up right down the street here, right? So, and I know Jersey pretty well, so how cool is it for you? Sort of career comes full circle at this time, in your life. Man, you're in a big-time arena in your hometown.
I mean, the last time I fought was probably in Brescia about 10 years ago for the UFC. It was awesome being there. The two loudest moments of the night is when I won my fight, and Glover getting knocked out by Anthony Johnson. So to come full circle around to go in there and make history with Frankie Edgar, who's another Jersey legend, it's just awesome. It's a great moment in combat sports history.
So as far as Frankie is concerned, you have respect for him, but from your perspective, what do you think you can do to win this fight, and what are you worried about with Frankie? One thing with Frankie, he's a freaking tank. He's a little tank. He's got the heart the size of the moon, right? So that's the number one thing. You talking about Robbie and Rory's fight. Some of my favorite fights in UFC history, actually, was the trilogy of Frankie and Gray Maynard. Man, those were some good fights. Like, another one where they both just ran through walls to beat each other. Like, they didn't like each other for real, Jimmy. Like, that was just real.
Well, yeah. That's true. That is true. I mean, listen, to respect from Frankie, he's, obviously got all the experience, a lot of experience. He's a very durable guy. And, just from training with him in the past and stuff like that, he's going to push the pace, you know what I mean? But I'm going to do the same thing. And like I was saying before, it's kind of cool, having this fight, making history. I know a lot of people from Jersey are like, you guys are both Jersey guys. We want to see a good fight, but it's hard to root for one or the other. But when it comes down to him and I are professionals, he knows there's no animosity, nothing leading up to that. Just like the Rory and Lawler fight, they went in there. There was no animosity, nothing, very respectful, and just gave an unbelievable war. And that's what you guys should expect. October 4th, that Saturday night, the first ever BKFC at a Prudential Center in New Jersey. It's just going to be fireworks, nonstop pace, just working and putting a show on for the fans. We both know everything prior to that. Listen, we're just doing our thing, training, getting ready. When the bell rings, is business. No hurt. There's no hard feelings or anything on that. And once my hand gets raised, no, I'm joking. Once the fight's over, we're still going to be cool and respectful because that's who we are.
Yeah, I know you guys are going to go out and have a couple of drinks after what should be a big-time war. I heard Frankie talk about training for this fight and said, and I've spoken to a lot of fighters about this, former UFC guys, MMA guys that are in BKFC now, and they love the training aspect. They don't have to worry about people on their back. They're not rolling around. Their necks feel a lot better. How do you physically feel? I mean, man, you've been through a lot of wars in your life. You've been in a lot of rounds, a lot of fights. How is your training preparation now, and how is it different from an MMA fight training for a BKFC fight?
I mean, going from MMA and having to do jiu-jitsu and MMA, ground and pound, all that, wrestling, kicking, getting kicked, to just boxing and just work on one attribute to martial arts is unbelievable. And I thought I would be done a little sooner with my body and just in general, but it's prolonged it a lot longer. I mean, this is Frankie's first time fighting. It's going to be my 6th or 7th fight with BKFC. It does prolong your body for sure because of just working boxing. You're not getting kicked. You're not worried about someone on top. You're not getting taken down or taking someone down. Like all that like grind and hard, just nonstop punishment to your body to where you just, you're boxing, you're doing rounds, you're doing drills, you're hitting the bag, you're hitting the mitts. You know what I mean? It's not like you're taking a kick and sparring, you get a little bruise or something like that. It's just a completely different animal, and it's almost like, all right, I get to fight, and I have even more fun training because I don't have to worry about all these other things. I only have to focus on one attribute.
I want to ask you about that, actually, because what I think is kind of an advantage for you in this fight is there, like, when you always hear about the octagon jitters, the first UFC fight. You could be 10-0 in another company, you could be this or that, or a badass, a champion, and everyone always says, yeah, my first UFC fight, I felt it. I felt it in the building. I felt it walking into the cage. What was it like the first time in the BKFC for you? Like, because it's different. It's a different company. You're walking in, you're like, oh, damn, this is real now. Well, I'm doing this. What's the difference, Jimmy? And you've done it, so I know you know the goosebumps, the feelings of the first time in the octagon to the first time in the BKFC, and I'm thinking, is this going to be a shock for Frankie? Because there's got to be some sort of, oh, God, this is a lot different.
Any MMA guy coming in here and doing bare knuckle is going to be a shock. I mean, listen, you're getting hit with a bare fist. It's a lot easier to get cut. You can't mess up throwing punches. It's really easy to break your hand. There's a lot of room for error. Stuff like that. It's a lot easier bone to, all the scar tissue on your face to get cut. So it's a different animal, and it's been proven already. You saw Rockhold fight Perry, and after he got hit, he was like, what the am I doing? And it's just like Mike Tyson says, everybody's got a plan to get hit. But when you get hit with a bare fist from another guy that can throw a punch, it's a shock. So you're either going to bite down your mouthpiece and be game, or you're going to be like, yeah, I'm done. How am I going to get out of this? Those are the only two things you're going to see when you first walk in there. You're going to decide, what the am I doing? Am I going to be game for it? I'm going to be like, I got to figure out how to get out of this.
Did you see Luke Rockhold? I saw Luke Rockhold's interview, and he goes, I'm not getting my teeth knocked out for this. So like you said, that's the classic. He was not game for it.
Classic right there. Listen, some people are bred and game for it. You look like, Eddie Alvarez. I got to train with him when he was playing for Chad Mendez. You look at freaking Mike Perry. He's, the spokesperson. He's the front man for the sport. This is his sport. This is his go-to because he doesn't care because he's game for whatever's going to come. He's going to take the pain and give it. So, you got guys like that, and you got other guys, unfortunately like Rock or people like him that are come in. They're like, yeah, this is not for me. And they find out the hard way when the fight starts.
Jimmy, it's awesome catching up with you. Thanks a lot. I know you got a lot going on. You're at a camp. You got a bunch of, your phone's blowing up. We can't wait for the fight October the 4th. Let's talk again. Thanks for the time, Jimmy.
No problem. Thank you.
There's a Jimmie Rivera with us taking on the legend Frankie Edgar October the 4th at the Prudential Center in Newark, New Jersey. The Combat Sports Report on the SportsGrid Radio and Television Network continues. I am Gabe Morency. Bring it.
Here's a tip. Some machines and online games have higher average payouts than others. Want to try to maximize your odds? Well, do some research online to find games which have the highest RTP or return to player percentage. So now, go get lucky. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
Devon Acham, catfishers are really tricky. I'm not saying he's going to be on the pup list or anything like that, but it is something to monitor. And he is a small running back, and I think chasing last season is just a problem. I can't take him over Derrick Henry at the end of the first round. I think it's crazy. And Ollie Gordon's a player we talked about. Here's the preseason stats for Ollie Gordon, Matt. 26 attempts, 126 rushing yards, 4.8 yards per carry, and a touchdown.
Fantasy only on SportsGrid.
Shohei Ohtani was minus 20,000, I believe, Tom, when we were talking last week. He's down to a minus 4,000, which I still think is fun. I don't know who'd say, now's the time to bet the minus 4,000 here and win some money. Schwarber's a 12-1 price, Machado 10-1, Soto 200-1. It's still going to be Ohtani's award here. They're not playing great baseball for the Dodgers, but I do find it funny. Like, what is the difference between minus 20,000 and minus 4,000? Who knows? Who's got that much money to play anyway?
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Arch Manning is a 7-1 price to win it. You take a look at Cade Klubnik here for Clemson. He's a 9-1 price. Nussmeier. Then we see Jeremiah Smith. He ain't a quarterback, Joe. He's a wide receiver. Love those wide receivers.
Yeah, Ryan Williams is another one from Alabama. Yep. Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams will battle it out for best wide receiver, potentially leading their teams to a college football playoff.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
Combat Sports Report continues. I am Gabe Morency. Thanks to Jimmie Rivera for joining us on the program. And it was hard for me to see. Like, I see him. I got a small monitor. Like, I'm looking into the camera. I'm not, like, looking at him, per se, the whole time during the interview. And the boys in the booth, and I sort of caught on at the end here, too. I'm like, what kind of gun? He's got a massive gun behind his head. So I would have asked about the gun if I would have saw it. It was sort of blended in the black scene there at the end, and I heard them like, "Has he got a gun there?" I'm like, "Yeah, he does got it. He does have a gun." I would have asked him about the gun. after, but we'll ask him about it next time. So, Jimmie Rivera on the show. That was interesting. Sort of cut out, and then the F-bombs came, which, shocker, right? The fighter dropped an F-bomb. So BKFC, like I said, guys, I've been around combat sports a long time. Like growing up in Montreal too, I've told the story before. Like Montreal was big. Like they used to have like the underground stuff, like on the reservations, and like the cops would raid it, and right. So like since day one type of deal, I've seen like the growth of this, and BKFC right now really reminds me of the UFC in its early days. Not like early, like, because BKFC's, selling out arenas now. And, it's getting big. But sort of like when the UFC was starting to get big. There's sort of an edge to it. There's like, forget about forget about boxing. It's about the UFC. Now, like, I'm not saying forget about the UFC, but there's, for people who want a little bit more than the UFC. Because every once in a while in the UFC, you'll get sort of a bloody war and stuff like that. And I'm not dismissing the wrestlers. I'm not dismissing the jiu-jitsu. Like there's different styles of fights. But for those that just like the, stand them up, right? The type of crowd that hates anyone that goes to the mat, and they don't want to see the jiu-jitsu skills or anything like that, which I don't agree with. But like I said, I appreciate all different types of the mediums of the sport, right? But for people who just want to see people throw and they want to see blood, because aesthetically, everybody gets cut. That's the thing. Jeremy Stevens was talking about it. He goes, it just looks cool. If you like fights, it looks cool because everybody's just getting split open. You know what I mean? They're bare knuckles. So everyone's getting cut in this thing. But I've talked about this in the past as well, about like hockey players, about like football players aren't good like in MMA that much. You know what I mean? It doesn't transition over automatically. It doesn't mean they're good fighters, but hockey players are actually fighters, right? Like, per se, by definition. Steve Bossé was a good example. He was a nutjob hockey player in Quebec who actually fought in the UFC, basically walking in off the street, off the ice. But love what BKFC is doing here. Are you ready? BKFC Ice Wars, the world's newest and most innovative combat sport, a thrilling new fight league that pits the world's toughest combat fighters against each other on a sheet of ice. Compromise the former hockey enforcers and current combat fighters in top fighting condition. Fighters square off in the ice box. A 900 square foot ice fighting surface specifically made for BKFC Ice Wars. 90-second shortened rounds. Wow. Wow. So, Ice Wars coming October the 10th to Sunrise, Florida. Talking about giving the people what they want. So this is great. Like I said, if you go to hockey games only wanting to see the fight, you could just go to Ice Wars now. You see what I mean? Like, BKFC has this thing figured out right now. I got to tell you, as far as they're like, all right, the UFC, they've got their thing going, and you can't mess with that. It is what it is. But how can we be different, and how can we give people what they want? And by definition, by nature, what people just want are fights, right? They want fights, and they want crazy fights. This, this is basically just taken from Quebec and that league Steve Bossé came from. It was called the North American Hockey League, and it was the biggest goon league in hockey history. Like, basically, you were allowed to fight 3 times, and you were expected to fight 3 times in a game before you got kicked out of the game. And the referees, like, they would play Rocky music and put the spotlight on the fighters. That's what they've done. They've basically taken this. It's actually brilliant, but creating their own ice surface. And I gotta tell you, like, if I could buy in and I could buy shares right now of BKFC, I would, because they're pushing all the right buttons, and the growth is huge for this. The growth is massive. Combat Sports Report. We have some other fight announcements, other news and stuff to get to. Quinton Rampage Jackson's son nearly killed a wrestler over the weekend. We'll get you caught up to date with that and a lot more. The Combat Sports Report continues. Bring it.
NFL's heaviest player in history cut by Tampa. His name was Desmond Watson. Did you see any the highlights? His highlights were walking up and down the field as opposed to doing gassers, and that's how he was supposed to lose weight, Joe. How about that?
They really tried to get the guy. I mean, they really did. They put a lot of energy and effort trying to get this guy underweight and athletic enough to make a difference, but he just couldn't do it.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
That number last year was a loser, comfortably. Jeremiah Smith in the regular season had 934 receiving yards, 10 regular season touchdowns. He had a phenomenal, and I mean a phenomenal, college football playoff, despite only having one catch for 3 yards against Texas. That is how good he was in those other 3 games.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Netflix is back in a big way. They get Home Run Derby. What else is in store?
Yeah, Craig, we told you they had a great shot at it, and if they do. Now, the deal's not done yet because there's some last-minute things. However, if the deal is done, Netflix gets Home Run Derby, Peacock and NBC get Sunday Night Baseball, and they also get the Sunday afternoon package that Peacock originally had 3 years ago, and Roku's had the last 2 years.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Basically, their whole entire year is going to come down to the Ohio State game. I would be surprised if they were to lose any game leading up to that. So them to go undefeated is 12-1 in the regular season. That's a regular season play. So I think that's possible to go 12-0 at 12-1. To win the Big Ten championship, I think is a 9-1 play is a good number to take because if they're in the game, we can hedge off of it.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
Combat Sports Report continues. Thanks to Jimmie Rivera for joining us on the program. We were talking BKFC, and just amazing, actually, the events that they're coming up with and how they are branching out from, sort of the bigger fight cards with Connor and 18,000 people and the Prudential Center card coming up, but to the regionals that they've had 3 cards in Edmonton, to now the no sticks, no pucks, no goals, no gloves, just fights. I love to, like I said, for people, we were just talking about, BKFC is for the drunk sort of jerk, and I say that respectively, that goes to a UFC fight and gets mad when they see a wrestler wrestle. Stand them up, boo! It's normally in Florida they do that, actually. So it's like, boo, boo. I don't want to see jiu-jitsu, right? And now they've combined people that, go to a hockey game only hoping to see a fight. I like how they put, on the poster, no sticks, no pucks, no goals, no gloves, just fights. Just fights. As a betting man, I'm willing to bet that this is going to do well in Sunrise, Florida, actually. Speaking of which, Brian Campbell steps up and in, CBS Sports, and more. Shout out to our boy, Aaron Bronstetter, who, of course, me and Aaron go way back. We wanted to get Aaron on the show, and he's going to come on, but he's always on the road a lot and this and that. When we record the show, we tape the show and tapings and stuff. But he goes, man, you got to get Brian Campbell on. You guys would get along well. And Brian Campbell from CBS was kind enough to join us on the program. Brian, welcome to the Combat Sports Report. Thanks for joining me, man. How you doing?
I'm fired up as always, Gabe. Thanks so much for having me.
So I want to get to some UFC, and I want to talk about your pound-for-pound rankings, actually. Not so much from a debate, let's have a hot take, anger about it, but I was interested in a couple of things about it. But first things first, you've seen combat sports for a long time. I've been around, I remember, when the UFC wasn't legal in most states and provinces and campaigning, and I used to have mayors on and politicians and all. So I've been around the sport a long time. This BKFC buzz right now, Brian, reminds me of the early UFC days, actually. It's not mainstream, but it's popular. It's like a popular heavy metal band or something. You know what I mean? It's like, they're selling out arenas, but you don't know about them, but they're selling out arenas. millions of followers on Instagram, selling out arenas. There is a buzz around this company right now, BKFC.
I mean, a huge buzz. And obviously it helps when you've got somebody as polarizing and famous and controversial as Conor McGregor sort of playing the Dana White role in that promotion. But, if one thing has been lost along the way in UFC success, and I go all the way back to UFC 4 when Joe Son was getting punched in the groin relentlessly by Keith Hackney, and my grandfather lost his mind watching that, is that a legal factor. I mean, I don't know if anyone's old enough to remember renting Faces of Death in the late 80s, but it sort of has that raw energy of, I'm not sure I should be watching this. Sometimes, obviously, you're still going to get that in modern day MMA and UFC. It's cage fighting after all, but it's very commercial these days. BKFC has cornered that market for people who want that feeling again, for people that, let's be very honest, love sort of trailer park pro wrestling style promotion. I'd love to act like I'm better than it. I'd love to act like I won't fall for a 2-for-1 hot dog deal at a gas station. The thing is, I will. And when you see tatted up crazy folks going nuts at each other saying inappropriate things, you're going to tune in anyway. Oh, but we're also going to get former boxing and UFC stars in there. Dave Feldman, give him credit. He can be shameless at times, but he aggressively gets after it. Yeah. And when they do their big ones, I can't miss it. It's a character flaw, but I got to see what happens next.
It's funny you say that, too, because, the casual fan, the casual sport fan, the person that doesn't like even UFC, which kind of like, oh, my God, it makes them cringe or whatnot. Or it turns them off. They don't want to, oh, that's too violent. UFC fans and even some fighters, actually, Brian, feel the same way about BKFC, right? Like, I've had a ton of them on where they're like, nah, dude, I thought that was crazy stuff, and that freaks me out. Oh, man, you get your face broken open doing that. It's like, man, you've been in 30 UFC fights, and you're worried about getting your face broken open in a BKFC match. It's completely different, though. It's just so... Jeremy Stevens, it's just thinking back, like, I want to ask you, like, who was born too early that would have been like the kingpin of this? Chris Lieben. Like, yes. He would have been born for this, right? Like, there's Chris Lytle, who's actually, he's on TV with them. But there's just sort of this list of fighters. And let me ask you about Mike Perry, because Mike Perry was a good mixed martial artist, but he had his flaws, actually, and his limits. He's just like, he's become the face of this company, and it's just like he's born for it. And one thing I said to Jimmy, in the UFC and in other sports, you see this fake heat. I hate it. The fake stare downs and all this. You saw that press conference the other day, bro. Those girls were going to murder each other for real. Like, you know what I mean? Like
you can't bring either home to mom.
No. Like, that was not fake. You can't fake that, and they're crazy because they're fighting bare knuckle. So it's not like, oh, it's an act. It's like, no, it's not an act. Like, Mike Perry's not an act, bro. Like, Mike Perry tones it down in public, actually, Brian. He's that crazy.
He really is, and you identified it perfectly. He was once a good mixed martial artist. He kind of became a journeyman, yet he's a breakout star still in his prime in BKFC. And it's not just because he fits the blood and guts sort of model that they're looking for. It's because, well, he's tough as nails, let's be honest. But here's the thing about BKFC. It's gnarly in there. I've seen so many boxers even be like, oh, I can do that, no problem. Then you get in there and you're like, this wasn't what I was expecting. Why? Because obviously you're going with the bare knuckles. You can injure your hand on the first punch you throw. You could be scarred for life in a fight that looked kind of basic. But more importantly, and maybe this plays to the success Perry has had and the sort of unique competition factor in it, is it levels the playing field somehow when you take off the 4-inch MMA glove or you take off the 8 or 10-inch boxing glove. We saw that when Mike Perry fought Luke Rockhold. You'd never think of that matchup in a UFC cage due to the size difference, but it's about who's willing to take more punishment, bite down, who has figured out the right way to throw those punches. You can't waste punches. You'll hurt your hand. You got to try to get the ones that are going to turn the chin. And whether it's MMA fighter against boxer, or sometimes guys at different ages or different weight classes or even different experience, the playing field is somewhat level. Maybe it helps if you've got a better striking background, for sure. But there's guys in there that look like truck drivers, and some of those are winning big. It's really just about how gnarly are you. Right now, Mike Perry can sell any fight he's in, and he also can win almost any BKFC fight he's in. Michael Venom Page found out that the hard way, even though he showed a lot of heart in that one. Paulie Malignaggi found out the hard way, the boxing legend. It's just a different arena. It's unique to itself. The people in Florida love it, by the way. And it's not like you have to hide it out there in Wyoming or something. It's really catching on mainstream in big cities. They're going to be in Philadelphia. They were in Philadelphia. They sold out. They're going to be in Newark, and there's a legit buzz factor following them. It ain't for everybody, Gabe, but it works. It really does.
No, it really does. And I would imagine it'll be a sellout or near sellout in Newark as well. We talk about UFC obviously as well here on the show, but we also talk about PFL, and there's room for other companies. You see, BKFC's got their thing going now, and PFL, just sort of, plodding along. People want to watch fights, right? They want to watch fights nightly. They want to bet on fights as well. They're looking for content, so there's room for more than just the UFC. In combat sports. But on the other side, I want to talk about Brian's UFC pound-for-pound rankings, and I got a couple of thoughts about them, actually. It was great stuff breaking it down with Brian Campbell on the show here. Combat Sports Report, SportsGrid Radio and Television Network continues. I am Gabe Morency. Bring it.
First time on a casino floor and feeling a little overwhelmed? Well, here's a tip. Lots of machines have a free demo mode you can try for practice. So give those slots a spin in practice mode before you start putting down some real cash. Now, go get lucky. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
Hopefully starting in 2027, where I think the schedule could just completely get blown up, which would be so exciting for the fans, the players. So there's interesting things that I've heard that that would be like one of the first things that could say that people are talking about, and that things could really get changed up a little bit.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
Good news, bad news, but it's the same problem when they created this problem come draft day, right? We all knew you got too many quarterbacks. It's as simple as that. Unless one guy absolutely stinks, then you still have too many quarterbacks, because you still got Deshaun Watson, who's eligible to come off the IR this season if they really want to go down that road again.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid. This is the moment every fan waits for. The countdown's over. The road to kickoff has begun.
Play is here to stay.
I'm not going to name names, Kevin.
From win totals to player props, from division races to MVP debates, we've got eyes on every camp and data feeding 24/7, breaking down every angle across the league. Every pick, every edge, every line that matters. SportsGrid. Your road to kickoff starts now.
Combat Sports Report continues. I am Gabe Morency. We're breaking it down with Brian Campbell from CBSSports.com, and he's got an interesting pound-for-pounder rankings from the UFC up on the website right now. And pound-for-pound rankings are always going to get a debate and a conversation going, but I don't have any beef with the rankings. Topuria is 1, Islam is 2, Merab is 3. Chimaev is 4, coming off the dominant performance. Pantoja is 5. Volkanovski 6, Ankalaev 7, Pereira 8, Madalena 9, Driscus still comes in at 10. What caught my eye about this, Brian, and I've been thinking about this for a couple of years, it's sort of been brewing, and I know I'm not the only one to think about this, but where are the Americans? Where are the American champions? Where are the American stars? Like, they're non-existent. Eastern Europe and Europe have taken over the UFC, haven't they, Brian?
They have, in a huge way. And it's not that we haven't had trends like this before. Everybody remembers when Brazil absolutely dominated the sport, and there's still a power player today. But it is difficult when you look across. There's one champion from the U.S. in all of UFC. It's Kayla Harrison in the women's bantamweight division. And if you're really trying to look at why, I do want to bring up a couple points. First of all, Logan Storley, the PFL fighter, former Bellator title challenger, he had a really interesting point last month when asked about this. He said, look, these days, the American collegiate wrestling stars, not only are they making so much money in NIL and endorsements that they're not like a, college basketball player in the past who wasn't getting paid and couldn't wait to jump to the NBA. They're not as motivated to automatically transition from American amateur wrestling directly into mixed martial arts in the UFC. Why? Well, we do have a fighter pay debate that we talk about in terms of when you come in on that lower starting level. If you're making a lot of money in NIL in college, maybe you're thinking about Olympic hopes. It isn't an automatic. Yes, Gable Steveson, the 2020 American gold medalist after a failed run in WWE and trying out for the NFL, he's going to start his pro career in LFA coming up
exactly,
soon.
Brian. He exhausted all avenues first. He exhausted it. He said, you know what? I'm going to try wrestling. I'm going to try football even before I do this.
It's not an automatic anymore that, the American National Collegiate Champions are going to just transition right away. I think the other thing is, this is what happened in boxing about a decade ago when fighters from Kazakhstan, Ukraine, from that area of the world just started popping up, and they were just a little bit different, a little bit more hardened, a little bit more motivated, willing to fight anyone. You are seeing right now an absolute force of dominance coming out of regions like Dagestan in Russia, all the surrounding former Russian territories, a bunch of, Ukraine. There's a lot of countries around there, Kazakhstan itself, the nation of Georgia, which has 2 UFC champions right now. These guys are being brought up in a much different way than the United States, much more disciplined background, a toughness that we don't always see. Is it a privileged American thing? I don't know. You can make all the debates you want, but the guys coming out of those nations are just built different. And I think things go in waves. When UFC really started to make moves in the middle 2000s, it was still American wrestling that was your dominant base. That's come all the way back. It's wrestling, but it ain't American wrestling right now. It's the wrestling you see out of Chechnya, out of those areas of the world where it's absolutely suffocating and dominant. Khabib Nurmagomedov was a big charge in that force. You have Islam following in his footsteps. Merab Dvalishvili from Georgia has a gas tank that just kills you as he lays on top of you. And now we have Chechnya and Khamzat Chimaev, who just over 5 rounds made DDP look like an amateur just by laying on top of him. This is a style that you need a big gas tank for. You need to be skilled. But if you're dominating a fight like Chimaev did against DDP, you're not taking any damage, by the way. It's not always exciting if you're not looking for the finish, and Chimaev was criticized for that in this specific fight, although Duplessis did nothing to change that. But yes, the stars of today are from different areas. They speak different languages. Is that a problem for UFC? It's not great, but remember one thing about this era of UFC. They're not trying to create the next McGregor. Would they love if Topuria is a worldwide sensation? Yes. They're not looking to pay or give leverage to the stars of old. They used to need stars to make it. Now they have 2 things, the UFC brand and Dana White's face to sell any fight they want to.
It's funny you say that because it was sort of where I was thinking exact same thing, sort of leading into them going away from the pay-per-view model. We don't need to build stars. We don't need to pay-per-view. Number one, we're getting paid already. And we do have global stars. So we have stars on other parts of the world. But let me ask you, one thing with boxing. You ask a casual American right now, what do you think about boxing? Oh, boxing's dead, man. Boxing's dead. It's like, wow, they're selling out arenas in England. They're selling out arenas in the Middle East, right? Boxing is not dead, but there aren't any star American boxers. down the road, does this catch up to the UFC? Or is it, no, we'll focus more on Asia. We'll focus more on, on Eastern Europe. Because there's always markets they haven't been. There's always deals and television contracts that they can sign in markets that they've never really cashed in before. But it's got to be a little, I guess it isn't, because they just got paid anyways without the pay-per-view. I guess that's what I wanted to ask. They don't need the star. We just got paid. We're fine. Right? It's more about content than star quality.
It is. Look, the one thing UFC that I'll give them credit, they will adjust to what their television contract is their backbone financially. They will adjust to what that provider wants. When it was ESPN, it was more about, we want a fight card every single weekend. Did it lead to watering down of cards? To some degree, absolutely. And we've been critical in recent years about that. But that was more about,
they want to show
Brian,
you race. When they were with Fox, they gave Fox what they wanted. You want a big show once a month? We'll give you a big show. You're right. They'll do sort of what the network wants.
And right now, with this new deal with Paramount and CBS in the U.S., what do they want? They want to remove the double paywall. They want to remove the pay-per-view, which does have a huge opportunity to bring more casual mainstream eyes on the sport, especially if they simulcast on CBS, still the most watched network in the States at a time when streaming is taking over. But it's more about pleasing their biggest customer, which is the person providing that. Do they want more American stars? For sure, but it is cyclical over time. Things do change. We'll see how it goes.
Hey, Brian, excellent stuff. Really enjoyed it. Enjoy your work. Enjoyed the conversation with you. Thanks a lot for taking the time to be with us.
Thank you.
There's Brian Campbell with us. Awesome stuff. This show's just flown by tonight. Combat Sports Report continues. I am Gabe Morency.
This is the moment every fan waits for. The countdown's over. The road to kickoff has begun.
Play is here to stay.
I'm not going to name names, Kevin.
From win totals to player props, from division races to MVP debates, we've got eyes on every camp and data feeding 24/7, breaking down every angle across the league. Every pick, every edge, every line that matters. SportsGrid. Your road to kickoff starts now.
The Pirates use that thing, Joe. It's like once every 15 years, we'll hope for the perfect storm with lightning in a bottle, then we'll try to rebuild it again. Enough, man. In this day and age, with the prospects that you can certainly have by stinking every year and top-flight talent like you see in Paul Skeens, it's just a shame, and it gets on my nerves. Like, for me, being a Phillies fan, I think it's hilarious. Like, I never want Pittsburgh to be good. Why? Not because it's a rivalry. It's just a team you don't have to worry about in the playoffs, and your team can make the playoffs.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
There's no way you're going to have a team with 63 wins and two other teams with 55 and probably another two that are between 49 and 52. So there's got to be some pullback a little bit, right? Under 62 and a half wins for the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
All right, thanks to all of our guests tonight. Really enjoyed the conversation with Brian Campbell and Jimmie Rivera. It's cool stuff. As people that have watched me for years know, we did MMA Meltdown for years on the Fight Network. Right, so we were in the fight game for a long time, and we've interviewed pretty much every fighter. So it's cool catching up with some of the dudes that we used to have on a lot, like Lights Out. We had on a lot, like Chris Lytle. we had on a lot, like Dustin Peg, who we caught up with a couple of weeks ago. Like a lot of these fighters, like, hey, man, hey, man, remember we spoke like 8 years ago, 12, 14 years ago, all the time. So it's cool catching up with the fighters. Great catching up with Brian Campbell. Look forward to getting our boy Aaron Bronstetter on the show. It's kind of the calm before the storm right now. You got college football. One thing that the UFC is very contingent of, unlike other sports, the UFC is aware of what's going on in the sports world and when to have cards, when to say, you know what, this is not the weekend to do it. And they don't take a lot of weeks off, obviously, the UFC. But we got some cool fights coming up in the future. I am fired up for the BKFC card. And I will say, and Brian Campbell said it best, like, you don't feel bad. Like, I mean, it's not like, it's not like the power slap or, you know what I mean? So I don't feel bad watching it, but it is very, like, anyone that watched the BKFC press conference the other day, like, it really was. And I'm not a press conference guy at all. Like, I didn't plan on watching. I'm not going to lie to you. I didn't plan on watching it. I have the fighters on. I watched the card. But it popped up on Twitter, and it's just too good not to watch. Like, Mike Perry, he's so entertaining. Like, I don't know what's the other way of putting it. Like, Mike Perry up there, because it's real, right? And it's funny because we talk about authenticity, and I see that Deshaun O'Malley just recently said that he tried to be too much like Conor McGregor. He got caught up in his image too much, and, it should be more about the fighting. Well, that's what I've been saying. I've been talking about this all day and the whole damn show, right? But, like, if it's real, like, if you're authentically who you are, then I think you're better off. If you're performing and you're trying to be somebody you're not, and you're putting on a character, you're putting work into that, right? You're actually putting work into that when you shouldn't be putting work into anything besides just becoming a better fighter, right? Not worried about your Instagram follows and stuff. But truth be told, fighters get rewarded for this stuff. So I understand why they do it to an extent. But the thing with the BKFC is it's real. Like, when you see some of these, like, throwdowns, man, and the stare downs and the smack talk, like I said, like, Mike Perry's just must-see TV. I don't know, like, why. Like, it was like that he was born, like, the BKFC and Mike Perry were somehow, like born to be together. Right? And like I said, it's not for everybody. If you don't like blood, don't watch a BKFC. But if you like bloody fights, it is super fun. And it's fun to bet on because there's a million fights, and they really are fast. Like I said, that's what the UFC used to be, right? Used to be, remember the UFC in the early days? I remember we had Dana White on the show, and they weren't that big. And he goes, what's going to make us guys? We're not like boxing. He goes, you go to boxing, and you got 10 fights on the card, and people don't show up until the last card. Nobody cares about any of the fights until the main event. And he said, we have great fights all night long on every card. And they still have, some good fights, but they have so many cards now that it's impossible to have great fights. Like, I mean, they, like the UFC's, the volume, the amount of cards that they have now, it's quite frankly impossible, right? But and also it's sort of slow in between, you know what I mean? It's not, it's not that rapid fire. BKFC is like rapid ass fire, right? So it's like being at a horse track, but like for fights. You know what I mean? Like, you bet on a horse and it's like, all right, boom. And like, there's another track coming up. There's another, like, it's so rapid fire. I think, and people have attention deficit disorder in today's day and age as well, right? So fun stuff. We'll get Lou back on the show, and we'll get back to some picks when we have some fights to break down and pick. But thanks to all of our guests tonight, Brian Campbell, Jimmie Rivera. Thanks to our crew in Master Control. We'll catch up with you on the grid, the Combat Sports Report. I am Gabriel Morency, and can't wait to break down the big fights that are coming up this fall. The UFC, we got a ton of them, actually, too. So they're going to come out as fast and furious in September into October. The BKFC is not the only ones with a big card on October the 4th. So other than that, you're on your own. Later.